So thank you for joining ACRL Distance Learning Section discussion group for today's presentation. We're going to be doing a roundtable discussion all about videos. So my name is Lindsay Wharton, and I'm co-chair of this committee with Kristen Heathcock. The Roundtable discussion series was initiated by the Distance Learning Section Instruction Committee last month, and the goal of these sessions is to create a community and a place for engaging discussion between colleagues involved in distance library services on a variety of relevant topics. The Distance Learning Section hopes to make these sort of informal discussions a regular event, so be on the lookout for the next Roundtable discussion sometime early next year. We will begin the session by breaking up participants into breakout rooms, and a committee member from the discussion group is going to serve as the discussion leader. We will spend 30 minutes in our breakout rooms talking all about videos, from assessment to engagement to our favorite technology and software. So please participate in these discussions using your microphone, using the chat box, or we will also provide you a link to a Google Doc, and you can use that as part of the discussion as well. And even if you're new to making library videos and tutorials, please participate, ask questions. This is supposed to be a really engaging session. At the conclusion of the breakout sessions, we will all return to the main room, and the discussion leader from each breakout room will share what was discussed. We will have about 30 minutes for this portion of the discussion, so it's pretty evenly going to be split up into our breakout rooms and then the main room discussion. Any information that is generated within the breakout sessions will be saved on a Google Doc, and the Google Docs will be made available along with the recorded session on the DLS website and shared with registered participants. At the conclusion of the session, please complete our evaluation form and let us know what you think of this event and of the roundtable discussions. So now we're all going to move to our breakout sessions, and that will take about a minute, but I hope that you have happy discussions.
That's great. I really appreciate
it. Good. All right. So yeah, thank you everyone for your feedback, and welcome back to the main room. So once again, if you could mute your mics unless you're going to be one of the discussion leaders sort of bringing back notes. And I hope everyone had a productive conversation. I really look forward to hearing back from each of the discussion leaders. So Jill, I was hoping you could start.
So can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Sure. Yes.
Okay, great. Great. So we talked about what makes a video student-friendly, and some of the things that we talked about were making them short. So we had a suggestion that they should be no longer than 1.5 minutes, that there should be clear, well-formed learning objectives, and that there really shouldn't be more than maybe 1 to 3 objectives since you're making the video short, that they should be relevant to the current need. They should include images, that you should get student feedback or ask students to help with creating the scripts. You should avoid jargon, no frills, just make them clean and simple. They should be embeddable into the LMS. And we talked a little bit about accessibility, but I won't talk about that since I know that'll be covered elsewhere. They need to be easy to find. And let's see, you should use peers to teach the content if possible. And then we had a couple of links to some examples which will appear in the Google Doc.
Great, thank you so much. That's really, really interesting. I think those are all really good tips that we could all use in our videos. So Kristen, would you?
Sure, I think we had question 2, which was, do you find some ideas or topics lend themselves better to videos than others? And we had similar things to what Jill's group came up with. We talked about having less complex topics, things like off-campus database access or things that we have to frequently tell students about. So something we know we have to repeat a lot, maybe we should make a video so that we can easily share that. But also keeping in mind we don't want to make videos about things that change frequently because we don't need to have to remake videos over and over again. Keeping in mind that these videos need to be short, so something we can make and share that's no longer than 2 or 3 minutes long. let's see, we have some specific examples, so that's really good. But another one was, again, how to use particular database, how to request articles from ILL. That was the basic gist of what we came up with for question 2.
Great, thank you. And Kristen, did you have another?
We did. We had, I think, question 5 as well. Do you want me to share 5 right now too?
Sure, you can go ahead.
Okay, sure. Question 5 was, how can we ensure that our videos are engaging and that students don't just let them play while they're doing other things? So we thought they need to be creative videos, and we need to have some humor and have humorous examples. And the videos should be really relevant and well-paced, but also short, right? So we don't want to have these big, long, drawn-out storylines that don't provide any relevant information. The videos need to really clearly share how they're relevant to the student at that immediate moment with what they're trying to do. And if we do have to make longer videos, we need to make sure the production value makes them palatable, so not something we just kind of threw together. Perhaps we need to work with some professionals on our campus that are really experienced in making these quality caliber videos. But the biggest point I think we all shared was that we really have to make sure they're short. And
I agree. I think that's so important in making videos, especially if you want them to actually be watched. So Dan, would you go next?
Sure. One of the things we were discussing was how we wanted to make videos relevant to students and instructors. One of the things that was discussed with that was actually taking requests from instructors on what sort of videos they think are useful to them and useful to their students. The other thing was, of course, one of the things was mentioned, in order to be relevant, it also needs to be something that students are going to be willing to watch. And keeping them short, as has been mentioned by a few of the other people, was very important in doing that. And also, we discussed using things like, if we're getting things like frequently asked reference questions, maybe that's something that needs to be spoken about, and keeping track of the analytics of the videos to see, are people really staying for the whole video, and if they aren't staying for the whole video, well, maybe we need to either tweak what we're talking about or tweak how we're talking about that and how long we're doing that for. So lastly, we actually thought that things like imaging and keeping involved with the style guide so that it's not just relevant but recognizable, and making sure our terminology was the same between what we talk about in our video and what we talk about on our website, so that when we're discussing these things, we're not confusing people by using things like different terminology that will confuse them, when we talk about the same exact resources.
Great. It sounds like a really great discussion, and I think that's actually something really important that we think about a lot, is even branding our videos the same way you would brand your webpage. So Trisha, would you?
Sure. I got bumped out of my breakout room, and so I ended up in Lindsay's breakout room and worked with the group there. It was great. Sorry about my other group. But we talked about how do you balance content needs with video duration considerations. And we talked about making the videos, of course, like 3 minutes or less. And one person was talking about having students making it a game. So try to make it, how do we make this video less than a minute and still get across some idea? Keep these learning objectives really compact and small. And one way to do that is to kind of take a larger tool or a larger learning objective and breaking it down into sub-objectives. So kind of, here's this cool tool, introduce it in one video, and then talk about the different ways it can, all the different perks that it has. Here you can limit your search. And basically breaking those out into smaller pieces. Also, we started talking about the last question, what do you think about video tutorials? And we were talking about it, and it kind of relates to this. kind of thinking about our videos in terms of advertising. And remember that Schoolhouse Rock, all the Schoolhouse Rock videos were done as advertising, and things like Saturday Night Live and Funny or Die started as, I mean, our TV shows, but their snippets run really well on YouTube. So trying to think of our videos as these kind of maybe a little flashier, you know, Schoolhouse Rock of the 2016s, I guess. So thinking about ways to break your video down and then make them livelier, I think, was what our group came up with.
Really great ideas. Schoolhouse Rock, that's such a great flashback. Everyone loved those videos, and everyone still like remembers those videos too. So it's really awesome. And if if you're not speaking, to make sure and please pause your mic, because I do hear some background noise. And so, Laureen, would you go next, please? Can everybody hear me okay?
Of course, we just told you all to mute. Okay. So my group of awesome, dedicated typers took on question, what technology or programs do you use to create videos? I think this went some interesting places. We're all using a variety of things, so we sort of took a +1 approach to which technologies we use. So we had someone using ScreenFlow, we had a couple people using Jing and Camtasia, someone who imports their audio from Audacity because it's easier to edit. And then similarly, I myself often use the voice memo option in iPhones to do audio recording because it'll create discrete files and it works as a closed mic. So that works really well for adding audio to Prezis. Panopto was one, Screencraft-O-Matic Pro. We also had Articulate Storyline, a couple people using it, trying to get a sense of it. And I had also written in there that once the video is created, sometimes I'll actually embed the video in PDFs. It's sort of a weird option, but it can be done. It makes the PDF a little heavy, but it can make for sort of a live experience with instructions. So those were the technologies that we used. We had a lot of really interesting discussions that I will save it for the document review later.
Great, thank you so much. And so now it is my turn, and we went over 2 questions specifically, and the first question was actually about what accessibility requirements do you consider when making videos, and how do you make sure your videos are accessible to a majority of students? And I think that this is a really interesting topic that a lot of people are still learning about. And so we talked about how different technologies, of course, require different sort of accessibility considerations, but I thought a couple of our good points were documenting best practices of accessibility and making sure that you follow through with those whenever you're making videos, always having a transcript, trying to include closed captions during your videos as well, thinking about colors, this is something really interesting to me, so nothing too crazy, and making sure your videos don't start playing as soon as you click. We talked about a couple tools as well, so like YouTube allows viewers to change captions, background, and text colors. So there are certain tools that sort of automate these accessibility features that will be really useful in saving time. And always, even we talked a little bit about thinking about digitization practices in libraries and how thinking about accessibility with those as well, and those documents we're making and making available to students in our online libraries. So there's a couple links in our discussion as well where we talked about web content accessibility guidelines, which I know is a pretty hot topic right now. And even we have a link talking about how even Harvard and MIT were sued, and there's a link about that. So some really interesting ideas about accessibility. I think it's a very complex topic, and it's something that's changing, so something we all need to stay on the ball about and continue to think about as we create not only only just videos, but all sort of learning objects. And so then we talked about assessment, changed gears, and thinking about, do you assess your videos and tutorials, and what sort of assessment practices do you find useful? And I think probably the main one we talked about is actually just asking for student and instructor feedback with questions about whether the video was helpful, what changes we could have made, and using surveys as well to make it qualitative or quantitative about what they thought of the video, how they perceived the video, and even using quizzes and seeing how the students do in the quizzes after the video, or looking at a final learning product. We had an example about if it's a video about finding a source in Academic Search Premier, then having students upload a link to an article they found there. I think that's a really neat idea. We had one of our group members say that they met with their library student advisory board and used them as a focus group for video feedback, and I actually think that is an awesome idea, and I want to use it at my library. And, really, I've tried to bring up view counts. We sort of steer the discussion in talking about how YouTube analytics and looking at the retention and if there's a drop-off when your videos are being watched is probably much more helpful than looking at the view count numbers. So that's kind of a bit of what we talked about assessment. And as you can see, it was really wide and a lot of different ideas there, and I think it was a really great discussion. So I'd like to thank you all for attending and participating in the roundtable discussion today. I think some useful ideas have been generated here, and we'll be sure to share this information in a forum that will allow all of us and the many distance librarians who can join us today to continue sharing ideas. I really want to thank all the members of the DLS discussion group for their work in planning this session. And we would like to continue providing this kind of programming if people think it's worthwhile for us to do so. So in order to determine that, it's very important for us to hear from you about what you experienced today. So I'm switching the slide now, and there is the link for the survey. We ask that each participant please complete our feedback survey, talk about your experience, maybe even what you think would be useful in these roundtable discussions. And as I said at the beginning of the session, the Google Docs, we were all going to collaborate them into one document and share with participants, so please be on the lookout for that. It will also be posted to the DLS website. And keep on the lookout for future roundtable discussions hosted by the Distance Learning section. I want to thank everyone for your participation today, and I hope everyone has a great day.